what a goal.
That is absolutely superb. Okay, Cameron, how are you, my friend?
Good.
It's been a long time, buddy. I was looking on social media the other day, just because that's apparently all we do right now. And I saw a photo. It might have been 6 years old, 7 years old.
Yeah.
Did you see it? Did you see it?
I didn't see it. I don't know.
I had you in a headlock. I think I was like
Okay.
beating you up. But no, you were playing for us at the provincial program, and I can't for the life of me recall what we were talking about, because I mean you had a very successful provincial career, but you had a very serious face on, and I kind of had you in a bit of a headlock having a chat with you. So I don't know if it was your mum who posted it, but it somehow appeared on my social media, and I was like, that's a great picture. Yeah.
Love it. I'll have to see it. You'll have to send it to me. I didn't see it.
Yeah, I to be fair, and I actually took a step back, and I'm like, the game's changed so much. You know what you can and cannot do is changed, and for the right reasons. And I'll be like, I wonder if I'd be even allowed to do that anymore. Here I am in a picture with a kind of like looks like in a bear hug.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's good to see you, buddy. You are, where are you?
So I'm in Kingston, Ontario.
Kingston, Ontario. So you're at Queen's University. And what are you studying?
I'm in engineering, so applied mathematics and computer engineering.
Sounds extremely smart.
It sounds smart. It's just a lot of pain, a lot of work. That's all.
Well, good for you, buddy. Good for you. You always were committed to whatever it is that you did. Now, do you happen to have you come across Dr. Jean Cote and Jennifer Turnage at Queen's? They work there. They're professors that really have got into a lot of the theoretical research around coaching and how leadership and types of leadership can affect the experience. Do you know anything about them?
No, I don't recognize those names.
Really good people. I'd recommend, if you have had the chance to hear them or speak to them, I would do that. So what year are you in?
Fourth year.
And how many to go?
1 year to go.
1 year to go. And is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Good thing. I love school. I love being here, so I'm happy to take it slow and enjoy it while I can.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Cameron in Queens and get a little bit of your backstory there, and then what we'll try and do is rewind it slowly and talk about really your experience as a player, growing up in Halifax City as a provincial player, and talking about really what was some of your memories, and see if we can really link it to where you've actually arrived to, which is today. So let's just talk a little bit about Queen's then. So you played for the university, is that accurate?
Yeah, so played for my first 3 years, and then this past year, in my fourth year, I sadly had to stop playing because of concussions. But I would have kept playing. Part of the reason that I decided to do the 5 years was to stay and play for a fifth year, since you have the 5 years of eligibility.
Right, and how many? It was the concussion started at university?
Had my first one in high school in grade 10. Only put me out for, I would have been, it was during a club match. I don't remember if we were playing provincial team at the time or not, but put me out for a couple of weeks. It wasn't anything serious. Got my second in university in second year, and then got my third in third year the following season. And that was the one where sort of just put me over the edge, and I realized I had to call it.
Well, your style of play, you were a very combative kind of player. Do you put that down to the reasons why you had these injuries?
Out of the three, 2 out of 3 of them were just purely unlucky. Right. One of the 3 of them was me going up for a header and getting headbutted, but the other 2 were just poor luck. So not really, I would say.
Because I would always describe, if someone was to say to me, I'd be like, Cam will run through a brick wall. I actually think I remember having that conversation about you to a coach of some selection. You were old. I was like, he will literally run through a brick wall. Yeah.
I probably would have. Yeah, I probably would have.
Well, okay. Well, that's unfortunate. But the 4 years you got to play, how was that experience?
It was great. I came out, and in my first year, I was one of the lucky rookies that actually got to get some time, which was a great experience. Just playing with all these older guys in this new league, just incredibly competitive, so much more fast-paced, physical.
Yeah.
It was really great. And then in my second and third year, I started to move up on the team, started to get leadership roles and whatnot. And it was really a phenomenal experience. It was the best soccer I played. It was the best team experience I played. It was the most intense. I really loved it. I was really, really excited to keep playing for another 2 years prior to having to call it off.
Good for you, good for you. And let's just home into that, because I mean, soccer is such a social sport, and you mentioned obviously the team dynamics there. What was so different then about your team experience at Queen's? What was, was it an environment thing that the coaches brought, or was it just the personalities of the people involved?
Mix of everything. I think one big thing that the Queen's men's soccer team is actually pretty well known for is their culture.
Right.
They've had this phenomenal culture for decades and decades, and you see it because we always have the men's soccer team alumni coming in that graduated 40, 50 years ago. We'll have 60 and 70-year-old ex-varsity soccer players come out to our games. And their traditions have been passed along for all of these decades. And it really just brings the team together. And then I think that, just in addition to the fact that you're training with one another 6, 7, 8 times a week, you study with your teammates, you're on the road with them every weekend. You're just with them so much compared to when you're playing on the provincial team. You see them every weekend or once a month or whatever it is.
Right.
You're with them 24/7 essentially.
Yeah, like brothers in a sense, family.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's talk about then to the point that you got to Queen's, because obviously you're quite academic anyway, very smart. I think you probably had your selection of opportunities at secondary educational institutions like Queen's. From a soccer standpoint, let's go back and talk about that experience, because I think it's important. I sent you Annika's interview, and obviously Annika's interview is it's the story that every kid wishes that they could go down, and hopefully Annika continue to meet her goals and objectives in that landscape. But the reality is she's the less than the 1%. The majority of players play, and hopefully that experience shapes them into the person that they are today. So, we're going to explore that with you, because, you again, I think would fall in another sport of kids that manage to come through a program and play at a university. Not everyone gets that opportunity either. But let's go back. So, when you were growing up in Halifax, can you tell me about when you started playing, your first vivid memory of when you started playing? When was that, first of all?
5 or 6 ish.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly.
Do you remember the field you played on?
It would have been Dow. It would have been Wickwire Field. I was there from the start.
Okay, and then I'm assuming that would have been a while now, so that it was not like concrete when you started, I guess.
No, I think I started close to the time when they redid the turf. I want to say for the first time, but I have no idea. I don't remember. It's too long ago.
So do you recall? Is there anything in particular about that early memory that you can remember? I mean, that's a while ago. If you asked me, I couldn't remember, but
yeah. I think, when I was going through these questions and I was just sort of trying to think back upon the early stages, it's hard to pinpoint anything, but I know from the start I always loved sports and I loved being active. And I think having these scheduled activities in my weekly plan was something that always got me excited. I know practices or games or whatever it was, I know it was something I always look forward to. So as a general sentiment, I think that's what I remember most.
Yeah, you mean, as I said, very combative player. So, competition you did thrive on, and I guess as a youngster, something that you related to quickly. Do you remember your coaches, the first coaches you had?
I remember a couple. A friend of mine's, Connor Gascoigne, his dad was a coach of mine for a year or two. Ed Beasley, Nick Beasley's dad. I remember he coached me pretty early on, and then he coached me later stages as well. I had a coach named Cameron who coached me when I was 6 or 7.
Right.
I don't know what happened to him. I don't remember seeing him anytime later. From 10 or 11 onwards, I remember all of those coaches clearer, but the early stages are the ones I remember most.
Yeah. I mean, in the younger ones, you might not remember them specifically or anything explicitly. Is there any? Do you remember the environment? What did the environment, if you can think back to it? I mean, you said you were like really excited around, training, competition. Is there anything in particular around the environment you can recall back then?
Yeah, I guess the way that City does it, and I'm assuming most other clubs, is the whole you split up into countries and you just play games every week, essentially, when you're at those young stages. And I loved it. It was the perfect mix of competition but fun. You had countries and everyone's dressed up in colors, and it's a great time. Your parents are watching. Then on the other hand, you're trying to win. I thought it was a really, really good mix of competition, but also enjoyment of the sport for sure.
That's really interesting to hear, because it's and you and I were talking about potentially work in the summer, and then obviously with COVID-19, that's put a bit of an unknown into the conversation. But it's funny, you seem to have grown up, and I've spoken to other players in your age where there was a level of structure where they would facilitate you by giving you club names or team names, and you kind of built this little camaraderie on the evening of the training session, and you'd go and play against other teams. But it was really all game based. That's what you were there. You're a kid. You want to play. When you sign up to soccer, you sign up to play soccer. You don't sign up to train soccer when you're 6, 7, 8, 9. It's funny, we've actually, and part of the tug of war that I'm seeing going on across not just Nova Scotia, Canada, the world, is that we've overstructured now that environment that you seem to have grown up in. And that was only, you're what, 22 now?
22, yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking, that's only around about 15 years ago that you went through this. And everything's now really structured. And, the kids, if it's actually the perception is if kids are just playing games, then they're not actually in an environment that's worth any value, because, you can get that quote unquote anywhere. So it's interesting that you went through that and you had success. That's something I went through as well. But we seem to have moved further and further away to more of this, we must coach little children how to be adult players when we know that they're not. So that's interesting. When you were going through that experience, was there any expectations that you felt that was externally put on you by anybody that was involved in your life, or was it just go play, have fun?
Gosh, in those early ages, I don't know. I don't remember any external expectations. It's hard for me to say because I would have been putting internal expectations on myself.
Yeah.
I'm hard on myself, and I know I would have wanted to be the best player.
Yeah.
Could be and be better than anyone else. So whether or not it was coming from other people, I don't know, because it was just so strong internally that's honestly probably what I would have been focusing on. But I think in those early ages, my guess would be no. I think up until about the 9 or 10 age, when things started to get serious, it wasn't too intense. I don't remember ever having coaches that were pushing me too hard or getting angry at me for not scoring when I'm 7 years old or something like that.
Right. And again, there was on this training session when you were countries and you were playing against each other, what happened when the session was over?
Popsicles, ice cream, I want to say.
Right. So, what I'm hearing, and it's funny, like there was a score because it's a game, but there was no real finale trophy. It was done. So kids, I mean, it's funny, Cam, like a lot of people are saying, that we're trying to take, I guess, the focus away from the experience by removing, say, official competition where there's league tables and winners, official winners, official losers. What I'm hearing from you is you were in an environment where it was a game, so there was a team playing against a team, and you self-regulated the competition internally amongst yourself. You knew who was winning, you knew who was losing, and that's what drove you. Whereas now, we're trying to somewhat create that same environment, but adults feel that we must create this like structure of It must be a league table at the ages of, 8, 9, 10, and there must be things where we report scores. But clearly you went through something where it was, you just played, it was facilitated through your club, and then at the end you got a popsicle, and then you'd be ready for the next week. There was no tables or anything like that. So again, super fascinating to hear that, because the sport seems to be really wrestling with this notion that if you take away the competition, the kids are no longer competitive, when that clearly is not the case from your example.
No, I think you're gonna find the competitive kids naturally, probably, and that's probably, you don't want to force kids into competition, because then I don't think they're going to enjoy it.
Right.
I don't know, if a kid is competitive, you're going to be able to tell pretty easily.
No, it's absolutely fair points. So let's talk then about 11, 12. You start to have a bit more of a memory of, your experience, coaches, anything in there that jumps out of you that, you can remember and it was a positive experience.
Positive experience. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is at under 12, I believe, is when the sort of provincial pathway began with the RTC, the Regional Training Center. It was under 12, I think it was under 12, and then provincial started under 13, I want to say. And for me, that was really exciting, because that was the first chance where you really got to prove yourself, prove to yourself and prove to everyone else that you are one of the best in the region and potentially the province. And that's when the competition really picked up. And I thought that was a really good age for me, at least. It wasn't too early, it wasn't too late. It was right around the time that I really wanted to start taking soccer a bit more seriously and really put my all into it.
And that, again, if we think about it, your personality lends to that attitude, right?
Exactly. And that's obviously my opinion and my story and not someone else's. In terms of other positive experiences, nothing in particular stands out. I think I really started to enjoy soccer around those years, and I was making good friends on my teams. And it was getting competitive. People were getting good. People were actually starting to be able to play soccer. People wanted to be the best. People wanted to win. And I was always surrounded by those people, because I think under 10 was the first year I started playing on a tier 1 team or a select team or whatever it may be. And I really enjoyed it. I think I really, really had fun those 2 years.
Through your experience, do you recall any players that, were in these select teams at 10, and then thinking about the last time you probably played youth football, which was around U18? Was it the same kids? Was there different kids? Like, what was that journey?
Completely different from I think U12 or U13 was when you started to really see who was in it and who wasn't. I always look back at this U10 team that we had, this U10 city team. And it's a bunch of my buddies from high school and middle school, and none of them played soccer.
Right.
I don't think since U10 or 11. They went on with hockey or whatever else it was. So completely different. The core group was still there for sure. There were very few people, I would say, that joined late. I think most people that kept on with it joined early. But a lot of people left for sure, for whatever reason.
Are you still in contact with those buddies that you played with that at U10, 11 that went off to like different sports or just stopped playing?
Yeah, a lot of them are my good friends through school, rather than through sport.
I'd be curious to know if why they stopped playing. What was their reason? Was it because it was too serious too soon, maybe at U10? Was it because they just had different passions? Were they able to juggle multiple passions, therefore they had to choose a passion? I guess, like, I'm curious, did we lose your buddies too early, if we'd have been a little bit more relaxed with the competition or the selection of these kids, that maybe they would have been playing at 15, 16, 17, 18? It's a question. I'd be curious to know what their answers were when you asked them.
Yeah, I can only predict. I don't know. My guess is it was just sort of the culture and passion around hockey. I think I think all of the buddies that I'm referring to went to hockey. And it wasn't as though they didn't enjoy soccer or they weren't good at it or anything like that. I think they may have just had a greater desire for hockey than they did for soccer. And I was in a similar situation because I played up until 12, 13. I played basketball as well.
Right.
addition to a couple of other part-time sports. So I don't think that would be anything on your end. I think that was more of just on the kids choosing what they enjoyed more. That's my prediction, but would have to confirm with them.
Yeah, it is interesting. There's me professionally just exploring, the development of people, and everyone's unique circumstances. They've all got different environments. They've all got different people influencing them. They've got maybe different siblings who love different sports. Maybe dad was a hockey player. Maybe dad's a hockey coach. Maybe they don't have the economic wealth to play hockey, so therefore they're playing soccer. All these reasons as to why kids play or don't play sports. And one of the quite murky conversation points is this notion of selection early and deselection. Are we deselecting kids? And it's funny, like I think back to your age group, particularly on the provincial program. One of the only criticism I think I can ever really have of the group was it was very, very fixed. There was only a very few that came in and out. And that would say to me, if we look at, development and the fact that really until you've finished puberty, it's very difficult to know what you're going to be capable as an athlete. But we didn't see much movement. And I wonder in reflection, did we deselect so many kids in your age group that the gap became so big that they were never able to actually get close enough? So it was always the same people. And then in return, how did that then affect you? Because as for example, competition breeds competition. If someone's not breathing down your neck, trying to take your place, do you become complacent? And again, you've got an attitude that probably doesn't necessarily align with that statement, but I can think of others in your group who were they were comfortable. Nobody was after their shirt. And did we, by not having a bigger pool, because we deselected early enough, not push you guys to really reach your potential as well?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's definitely a big concern, and definitely something I thought about over the years with our provincial team, because there definitely was a gap between our 22, 24 that kept essentially the same guys from U14 almost U15 to U18. And there was a gap between us and then the next best players in Tier 1 across the province. And I think even myself, being incredibly hard on myself, I did become slightly complacent because I knew my spot was on the team, and I knew that I only had to work as hard as these guys, but there wasn't anyone coming in to fight any new skill, any new talent. But 100%, I think I could have really benefited from having new guys in, rotating in, including myself. Like if I had got cut from the team one year, I bet I would have become twice the player the next year. 100%.
Well, I think back to one of the one, it's funny, the one player that I had to make a decision on, and we've spoken since, and he actually says it was a big wake-up call for him, was Willie Warren. Willie had always played up with Alex Black, and then all of a sudden, he wasn't even being selected to travel to Atlantics with our group, and that was such a tough decision for us as a coaching staff. But he came back the next year and was an absolute different person. I mean that was a lucky. That was probably very lucky because, Willie had the same mindset probably that someone like yourself did. For others, that decision alone could have stopped him playing the game. And just that could have been, if I think back to, was that a good decision or a bad decision? I don't know. I mean, he was 17, 16 at the time. That one's on. I'll have to think about that more. But I definitely think your group, you did get hindered by the fact you were so consistent. It was the same people. And I think back to your club career. If I was to chat about this with Matty Holton, you had actually a lot of in your latter years anyway, as a club player, you had a provincial team basically, which was a club team. I mean, if I recall, I don't think you lost a game for like 2 seasons.
There was one summer where we didn't lose a game, and then the next summer I think we may have lost one, drawn one, I'm not sure, but we had a very strong side. I think building on what you're saying, one of the great things about City was because they're 2 years per club or per team, there was the rotation because there was just such a higher, so many more people coming in and out. One year I'd be playing with Blake and Ahmed and Ayub and all of those guys, and the next year I'm playing with Jacob Bolton and Joe Edgerton, and those guys. So you were always fighting because all three of those years could play so well. And
I think back to that was a bit of a golden age of youth football for the club. But again, I think to potential, and I just think like, was that group of players again hindered by the constraints of the environment around them, because everyone around you that you were playing was not able to push you? Like you knew going into games most of the time that, you know, we didn't have to play necessarily our best and we could still win the game. And, you know, you had semi-decent runs at club nationals, which doesn't mean anything, but you had but did you just never really hit the potential that you could have hit because you were never really pushed locally, because there was no one to really push you?
100%. Every time we went to club nationals, we told ourselves our roster compared side to side is just as good as everyone else here. And I truly still believe that now. But we just didn't have the experience. We would go and beat teams 6-7-0 every single game. So it was tough. We didn't.
Yeah, mentally you just didn't have the same experience. That's fair. I mean, what do you say then to people? Because Cam, there's still this notion of to develop, I have to be around or I have to play with the best players. Whereas your argument could be you did develop and you are playing at Queens and you had an experience, but there's an argument to be said that in order to be a good player, you also have to play against the best players, not necessarily play with them. So what do you say to those parents that may be trying to find basically a provincial team in a club somewhere, because that's what's currently occurs?
It's tough. It's so tough because when you look on the game side of things, I think it is more beneficial having that competition. But then on the training side of things, our city practices, they were phenomenal. Every single one of them was an absolute battle. So it's really tough. I think you need to really find a balance of both. If we had more people in Nova Scotia, I think having 10 teams that were at the caliber of the city team for those just few summers, that would be ideal. But how you achieve that, I don't exactly know.
Do you think, and because we shorten the pool so early, if we make it bigger for longer, maybe we'll have more players to pull from, and therefore we'll have more competition?
Yeah, perhaps. I don't know, but
I don't know either. I'm just exploring.
Potentially.
Yeah. Well, my mentor right now, and a lot of people that I'm fortunately able to converse with, they've got this principle that I believe in. It's as many as possible, for as long as possible, in the best environment possible. Because you've talked of things there like your training environment was top notch. We need to create those training environments all the time with as many kids, so that eventually we have a province that can push each other, because we're only as good as the club next to us. And I've been saying it for years, no one wins if one club is dominant. Nobody wins. Everyone fails. So how are we going to work together? And it's something that my colleagues, people at Soccer Nova Scotia, I know that are continuing to look at that. Let's talk then about, because we've talked a little bit about the football experience, but how is that entire experience influenced who you are? Do you think it's influenced who you are?
Yeah, 100%. It would be stupid to say it hasn't. Aside from academics, football is what I've committed the most time to over the past 22 years of my life. And it's completely shaped who I am, for the better, I believe. I think just looking back on my experiences and sort of what I've learned and what I've taken from it, the biggest things that I've sort of learned are, one, just work ethic, and two, just leadership skills. In terms of work ethic, just I always knew that getting better was tough. You had to put in time, you had to put in work, and I always wanted to be the best. And I've really taken this mentality and applied it to anything that I do, whether it be a job or a course or whatever it is. It's not easy. You really have to dedicate yourself to whatever the task is at hand, to get good at it and to achieve your goals. So that's one thing I really learned from soccer, I think, primarily, that I've taken on in everything I do day to day. And then the second thing I talked about, leadership skills. I was very lucky, as you know, to have several leadership positions throughout my club and then in university as well. And I think that's honestly potentially what I gained the most from soccer. So many things. I think being a good leader is so important, whether it be public speaking or understanding that everyone has different skill sets, or just being able to communicate with your entire team, whether that's a soccer team or a team in a group project.
Talk to me about that journey a little bit, because I coached you, and I have a memory of you working and being given a leadership role, but at times you were obviously a lot younger, getting frustrated with people around you. How have you, because obviously when you're 15, 16, there's a lot going on in a teenage mind. How did you juggle that? Because you clearly are very mature and intelligent, and have gained these leadership skills. How did that experience, I guess, being on a soccer pitch and getting frustrated with people around you, maybe not be having the same mentality that you had? Like, talk to me a little bit about that and how you've had to, I guess, develop and grow that patience.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. When you've got 11 guys on a field, not every one of them is going to be like you. None of them are going to be like you. Every single one of them is different. And you have to understand that. Empathy is the biggest word that we always talk about here. Is you need to put yourself in their shoes, understand their mentality, how they approach it. And until then, you're not going to be successful. And that was something that, as you mentioned, I didn't fully understand. I still don't completely understand, but I didn't fully understand, especially as a youth. And I would get frustrated as people because they wouldn't do something the way that I would have done it. But that didn't necessarily mean it was the incorrect way or not the optimal way to do it. And I think now at Queens, when I had my 1 year in a leadership role, it was something I really, really tried to understand, was not only get to know everyone, but get to know their playing styles, get to know how they approach the game, and really just patience. Like you said, it's so important. You have to be behind their backs 24/7. That's what a good leader is, to me, at least.
Well, I mean, I always say to parents, when I'm talking about soccer in general, I'm like, yes, we coach soccer, we provide soccer environments for your children, but we ultimately are in the people business. And it sounds like you've figured that out. Empathy, just getting to know them is key. How can you optimize as a group of young men if you don't even know them? Mm-hmm. So good for you. I think that's really, really it's great to hear, actually, because I remember watching you wrestle with some of that, and that's fantastic to hear you say the things you're saying.
Thank you.
What about leaders that you played for? Did they have an influence on you? Is there anything that their behaviors, traits that you looked at and you find yourself even sometimes like replicating? Mm-hmm. Anything?
Yeah, I think in my first year here at Queens, I was coming in, I was 18 years old, and there were guys on the team that were 23, 24, a whole other generation. They were far older, wiser, more mature than I was. And I took so much from them. I think the biggest thing that I've gained over the past few years is just really the ability to take initiative and to take that first step and be brave and be bold, because everyone's scared to do it. So I think just once you do it enough and you get comfortable with it, it becomes a lot more natural. And that's something that I think I've gotten a lot better at over the past few years. Right. And that's definitely something I learned from my older peers, especially here at Queens.
Good. So, I mean, what I'm hearing like a lot of is you learn a lot from your peers, the modeling behavior that they gave to you, and then you try and replicate for others, which is good. Okay, let's kick on here. Engineering. What kind of skill sets do you need to become an engineer? I'm just wondering if there's anything that basically translate. Even though it's football, what's the skill sets that you need to be an engineer?
Problem solving, like I know that's the go-to, the cliche, but really just being able to break things down into the most simple form possible, just understanding the problem, and then breaking up what you know, figuring out what you don't know, and how to get from A to B. And I think that does relate back to soccer, and potentially started to use that a bit more in the past few years with football, with trying to learn new skills, is, all right, what am I good at? What am I not good at? The things I want to improve on, what am I lacking? And what do I need to do to get there? And really taking a very logical approach to it has allowed me to improve, I think, a lot more efficiently than I had in the past.
Well, I mean, and when you and I haven't spoken before I pressed record, so some of the things there, it was like gold when you said it. I mean, soccer's not, there's not a lot of logic to soccer in the sense that it's so complex and random that you don't control, because there's, as you say, there's 10 other teammates, 22 people on a field. You've got wind environment, you've got field environment, you've got referees, you've got fans, all of that blend into something that's just completely unique every single time you step on the field. But there is that notion of solving the problem that you are facing game to game, minute to minute, right? So again, if you're saying that as an engineer you need to be able to problem solve, I would ultimately say the biggest asset a soccer player has when I'm trying to coach players is, can you solve problems? Can you solve problems? Yes, they're unique in the sense that, you know, you don't control the environment, but you certainly have to figure out, well, what can I do here that's going to make me successful in such a split second, using a memory of repetition of, you know, previous solutions you've solved or previous actions you've completed. So that's interesting alone, because I mean, Cam, I mean, playing football, you were solving problems all the time, and if that is happened through osmosis to help you get to a point now that you're in a professional career, or you're heading down a professional career where that's where you're going to get paid to do it, that's great. I think could be a correlation there. Yeah, for sure. What does Cameron, then, the 22-year-old, say to somebody who may be coaching Cameron, the 6, 8, 10, 12-year-old? What do you think is essential? What do you think something that people need to be aware of when coaching youngsters for maybe the first time they've ever played? Maybe they've played for 3 or 4 years. What do you think some of the key principles that you would give somebody coaching kids?
I think it depends if they're coaching me or if they're coaching
Okay.
For me, I think I just wish I had have known. I knew it internally, but I was never told how tough it would be to make it all the way, to really go to that next level past university, whether it's semi-pro or pro or what it may be. I wish I had someone tell me, this is what you need to do, or this is how much more you need to work to really get to that next step, because I was always on this fine line of, I thought I was close enough to go to the next step, but I didn't really want to push myself that hard because I knew I would really have to give everything to it. So that's something that I wish I always knew, or at least was told, because I think I knew it internally, but just wanted someone to confirm it for me. In terms of a general group of kids, I think it's just really important, like we've sort of discussed, to figure out who the kid is that you're working with, whether they are very competitive and they want to win and they want to get better, or if they're just there for a good time and just to have fun and enjoy the sport. And I think that figuring that out first, and then changing your coaching style or what you say to them accordingly is most important.
Right. So get to know the individual, which comes back to the leadership stuff you were saying earlier. I mean, the question, I guess, the answer to your question personally is, it's difficult to ever answer that question to any youngster because, number one, the environment around you, whatever that environment you have lived in and the culture that you've lived in, if that's not even remotely close to what it takes at the highest level, the ability to connect those two dots together is impossible, because the bridge doesn't live. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't physically connect them. I think as your culture or your environment is in a performance mindset, then you're getting closer and closer. You can slowly start to see what you might need to do that extra to get there. And it's funny. I mean, if you use Annika, that's why I think they moved Annika to Toronto at the age of 16, just to see if she can live there, feel that environment, so that she can push herself onwards and upwards. So it's a tough one. I don't know if you can ever answer that question, but I appreciate you giving me the time to chat with you today. I think, again, this is going to be really educational for anyone listening, because for me, you are a success story. Even if you hadn't played for Queen's University, it's not because you went to Queen's University. You're a success story in the sense that you were a kid that came through grassroots football. You had, you got the opportunity certainly to play at the provincial level, but you would be probably still playing today had you not had the injury. And that in itself is success. We've talked about it earlier. It's under 1% who are going to make it to that, that, I guess, land of opportunity where you can get paid to play the thing you love to do. The rest of us, we just play because we love it. And the more we can get through to that point where they're going to play as adults because they love it, I think we've done our job. If we've helped them develop as human beings along the way, and you've had fun and you've got positive memories, then that's all great stuff for me. And you are that example. It's just a shame you can't play because of obviously concussion. So well done, buddy.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all of your great coaching years. Couldn't have done it without you either. So
well, and that's funny itself. I mean, I don't think I coach even remotely the same when I was coaching you. So okay. Coaches have to learn as well, and they have to, as a friend of mine said the other day, you're trying to optimize a player's development, but you also, in order to do that, you have to optimize you, the coach, whilst you're doing it. And if you think that you're not able to be vulnerable and not learn and make mistakes whilst you're trying to take this youngster with you, then guess what? The youngster's going to fail as well. So optimization has to come from both sides. Mm-hmm. And you would probably go, Mike didn't coach me like this. So yeah. Well, listen, hopefully things change for us with the pandemic. Hopefully, maybe there's a summer job for you at the club. We'd love to have you involved in some capacity. I am going to do a sneaky pitch for something that I've been trying to push here over the last really now 24 hours. I set up a group and a GoFundMe page it's called Run for Heroes. And the idea, Cam, is you basically run 5K and you can nominate or at least dedicate the anyone that you may be running for. So you may have family who's on the front line, whether they're a healthcare worker, whether they're a grocery staff member. Those are essential services. But you basically run 5K, dedicate it, and then you donate $5 to what it is. So we're trying to get the word out. You're in, obviously, Kingston. If you've got a network of people, you can follow us online. I can send you the information. If you can't run 5K because for whatever reason, that's fine. Run as little or as much as you can. If you can't donate anything because you're a poor student or you lost your job like me, that's fine. But if you can at least share it, and the more people we can get around doing this, we're hoping to fundraise like 10 grand, and hopefully it blows my expectations out the water and we can do something even better. But I stole the idea from the UK, and they're close to £3 million right now. So yeah, it'd be great. So do it if you can, and you have to upload a photo.
I was planning on running a 5K today, so I would love to help out. Perfect time.
Good. So when you finish, upload a photo and I'll send you the details.
Will do.
All right, my man. Good speaking to you.
All right. Cheers, Mike.